When we think about percussion and the sound, we think about drums. In our timeline, we saw that percussion instruments traveled across the world over the centuries. In 5500 BC, it was the first recorded appearance of drums. They were made from alligator skins, and they were originally in the Neolithic cultures of China. The star will represent where our journey begins. Next, in 3000 BC, another significant advancement in drums and percussion was the bronze dong sun drum, made in northern Vietnam. You can see a picture of it here. Around 1000 to 500 BC, Sri Lanka and the African people began to use drums as a means of communication over large distances. You can see the drums specifically used here in the picture above. Also in 500 BC, the takao drum arrived in China from Japan. You'll see a picture of this drum where you can stand and bang. In 200 to 150 BC, African drums became widespread in Greece and Rome. That means that the drum pictured here traveled from Africa to Greece and Rome. And in 1500, the African drum finally made its way to America. Where we began our journey with the Neolithic drums in the Paleo and the Neolithic time period, literary records first showed these drums were being used in ritual ceremonies. They were covered in alligator skin. You can see a picture of what one would have looked like here. Remember, this is a long time ago, so not very many of these survived. Here you'll see in Chinese written the actual poetry that included the mentioning of one of these drums. This is how historians know that drums existed in the Neolithic time period in Asia. On our map here, you'll see Asia in red. The Neolithic time period included territories where you see the star. This is where the Neolithic drum began, and history, a timeline where it began being written, started. The other one we mentioned was the bronze dong sun. This, also originating in Asia, specifically Vietnam, was actually a metal work of remarkable skill. You can see here that it was made out of bronze, and then within it and on it are etched beautiful drawings, decorated with geometric patterns, scenes of the daily life, sometimes even war. They included animals, birds, and boats. These could be pretty expensive and pretty heavy to make. These were very special drums made. Vietnam is still in Asia, and right below where the Neolithic drums began. You can see how percussion traveled already between communities and cultures, from the middle parts of Asia down to Vietnam. The drum represents where Vietnam is on the map. The next important part on our timeline was the Sri Lankan and African drums, around 1500 BC. This was a drum that was used by the Hindu people, usually during religious and social activities, to keep the rhythm of these events going. As you also heard in our timeline, it was used to communicate between communities. These drums vary in size and diameter, meaning how large the circle is at the end. And they had 3 different hides or skins from animals on them. They each had a very special name: the mitu, the tadu, and the satam. This drum can be played while seated and in the drummer's lap, and sometimes even standing. Sri Lanka is still in the continent of Asia. If you follow our map from the star where we began our journey using Neolithic drums, down to Vietnam, where we used our bronze drum, and now here. Years later, you see in Sri Lanka the advancement of the drum. In 500 BC, we also saw that a very special takao drum arrived in China from Japan. Both China and Japan are still in Asia. So you can see the percussion is slowly traveling throughout this continent. The Takai drum was functional in terms of being able to communicate, specifically in military action or in theater or entertainment, and even religious ceremonies for concert performances. You can see a picture of the drum here and then placed on our map. From our star, we traveled to Vietnam, then Sri Lanka, and here we are in the middle of China as it traveled from Japan. Our timeline also noted that around 200 to 150 BC, the African drums then started to spread widely among Greece and Rome in Europe. This is a djembe. It's a rope-tuned, skin-covered goblet type of drum that was played with bare hands. This might be, or looks very similar to, one of the first drums that traveled from Africa to Europe. We can see on our map, in Africa, the orange continent, how this drum then traveled into Europe, where Greece and Rome are. You can see here the drum, again pictured in the green continent of Europe. Finally, in 1500, African drums arrived in the Americas. The Akan drum is really one of the ones that they found first. This is an example of one found, actually it is the one found, in the colony of Virginia in North America. It is now the oldest African American object that's in the British Museum, possibly maybe even the oldest that survives anywhere. This traveled from Africa all the way to North America. You'll see here now the oldest drum perhaps in the world over top of our yellow continent from Africa. African drums had quite the variety. You'll see that that's why we have changed the design by the time it reached North America.